economic prospects with Manji Cheto, the Vice President at Tenyu Intelligence. Manji, Nigeria obviously a focal point for investors because of the security concerns with Boko Haram, the drop in oil prices, and other factors like Ebola. Investors haven't been too positive on Nigeria and its economic prospects. What does the government need to do to bring confidence back?
I mean, I think, if you look at the central bank statement over the last few months, they've made it quite clear that they're going to continue to defend the naira using reserves. The problem is they've actually attempted to do this, and markets don't seem to be confident that, they will continue down on this path. Already, we've seen the naira decline of close to 10% since the beginning of the year. So what you can expect certainly today from the central bank is some kind of policy action. The question is, are we going to get tightening and devaluation, or are we simply going to get tightening? And I think my baseline call is that we're going to get some level of tightening on the naira, which should help, I think, in easing confidence and also on reserves depletion.
The drop in the oil price has already prompted foreign reserve sales from its central bank. If oil continues to drop lower, perhaps even below $70 a barrel, does that put Nigeria in a tenuous situation?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, again, Nigeria does benchmark its annually, every year, the budget is actually set against an oil price benchmark. And this year seems to be that they're anticipating the floor to be $73 per barrel. I mean, I think that, again, they're expecting that with the OPEC meeting in 2 days, that we're going to get a cut in supply, and therefore that should hopefully keep those oil prices above 70. If we don't get oil prices hover around 70, then I think we're going to get serious economic crisis, and Nigeria's policymakers will then be forced to actually react more dramatically than they have. We've already seen proposed cuts to expenditure for next year, but they're going to have to do a lot more than that.
Of course, Nigeria is Africa's top oil producer. It makes about 80% of its government revenue through oil. Analysts actually say that Nigeria is one of the biggest victims to the shale boom taking place in the U.S. because the crude that Nigeria produces is similar quality to what is produced in North Dakota in the U.S. Is that a big concern?
I mean, policymakers have made it quite clear that it is a big concern for them. However, I mean, I don't think that they've moved as dramatically as they should to address this crisis, partly because actually, while the U.S. purchase of Nigerian oil has gone down, we've actually seen India become a major purchaser of that. However, I mean, quite a lot of the African countries as well that are becoming new producers will especially be competing for the same market. So I think for the Nigerian government, what we're probably going to see in the short term is they're going to actually have to borrow more on the international market to meet some of the expenditure plans that they do have. Realistically, Nigeria can do that because it does have a low debt to GDP ratio. Its fiscal deficit is quite low. It's operating with a current account surplus. I think markets might tolerate a bit more borrowing from Nigeria, but long term, I mean, the plans are not sustainable. You cannot continue to borrow as an emerging market and actually expect the people and the market to remain confident in your economy.
And let's talk about terrorism, which continues to be a headwind for Nigeria. 120 million people live in Nigeria. Islamic insurgency in the north has been a big threat. How are you factoring that into your investment thesis?
I mean, we've already seen, again, a slow reduction in growth projections over the next few years. While next year, I mean, the government was anticipating growth of about 6.5%. It's sort of slowed that down to 6%. And I think that, after the elections, the government has got absolutely no choice but to confront that. If we don't, I think Nigeria, the kind of growth rates that we've seen of close to 6 to 7%, again, that's going to be shaved off more dramatically. And the main crisis here is while we've had a lot of the security crisis isolated in the northeast, there's always a risk that you're going to have attacks in southern parts of the country, which are economically stronger. And I think at that point, markets will absolutely lose confidence in the country.
Okay. By the way, I have a question. Who's invested in Nigeria? Where are the foreign investors? Are they from Asia, or are there investors in the U.S. and Europe as well, trying to get exposure to this economy?
In the kind of last 10 years, the main investors were mainly Western investors, but actually we're seeing a diversification of the investment to Nigeria. A lot of it is coming from Asia. Some of it is coming from the Gulf. Again, in the financial services, in retail, those are key growth areas, and also oil and gas servicing as well. I think, again, we're going to get more diversity. Actually, there's a lot more African investors as well investing in Nigeria, particularly South African companies.
Okay. Manji Cheto, Vice President at Tenyu Intelligence, thank you for your time.
Thank you.